Hey, what's going on, guys? So today I'm gonna cut straight to the point. You're here for a reason, obviously, because you want to stream on your crappy PC, just like mine. And so that brings us to the point: streaming on a budget PC or a dual-core PC. So first, I'm gonna go over a little bit of what I have, and I've kind of put it in the description and in the title. But I'm using an I3-6100 Intel, obviously. So the reason that you're able to do it on this processor is because it's hyper-threaded. If it was like a dual core with just 2 threads, I mean, it probably wouldn't be possible. But the 6100 series and what Intel has done with it is the hyper-threading is just incredibly strong. It almost acts like a quad-core processor, which is great. And so the first point that I'm going to go over is basically what processor you want to be using. Now, obviously, I'm going to be showing you how you can stream on a dual-core processor. That only really applies to Intel. If you're going with AMD, you might be able to get away with using a quad-core. In my experience, not really. You can do it on a 6-core. But still, it's going to be kind of complicated, kind of difficult, because AMD's just older architecture on their 6-core and quad-core processors just aren't that great. You'd be better off going with an 8-core that even probably costs just as much as the i3s is what I'm using. But to go on, so basically you're going to want something that's at least quad-core from Intel, and if you're going AMD, at least 6-core. At least 6-core. You can't, that's sort of like for optimal. But obviously I have gotten away with using the i3 as I'm kind of showing you. So again, I'm using the i3-6100, the 3.7 gigahertz processor, along with the stock cooler. Not using anything fancy. This is a very budget build. Altogether, I've spent about $500 total on this. For the RAM, I'm using about 8 gigabytes of I don't even remember what kind, honestly, but I'll put it on the in the description below. I'll have all the specs and all that. The video card, I'm using a GTX 1050 Ti. Again, nothing really special. Super budget card, 4 gigabyte card. If you were to upgrade, if anyone's ever thought about switching between like the 1050 Ti and the 1060, just the 3 gig, do it. It's a lot better, trust me. So I mean, again, like really not using anything crazy special. And then as for your internet connection, obviously, like I'm just going over main points. These are very stereotypical. A lot of people have already gone over this, so if you don't know by now, you probably should. Internet connection, you want to have at least 3 megabyte upload. That's like minimum that you want for a 720p, stream. If you're going 1080p, which I wouldn't even recommend unless you were a partner, then you're gonna want an i7 processor. Like regardless, you cannot do this without an i7 processor if you were doing 1080p. Other than that, to the next point, we can actually go into the settings. So let's go ahead and swap over to recording with OBS, and I'll show you exactly what settings I have and what you want to do with it. Okay, so now we are here in OBS. You can kind of see my my audio backtracks in the in the background. Yes, my window is not activated, so no need to bring that up. I know, don't worry. So the settings that we're gonna go into. So obviously, click on settings, and this general tabs. You don't even need to worry about anything. As for the streams tab, don't need to worry about anything. Output is one of the main things that you're gonna be looking at. For your video bitrate, it is going to depend a lot on what your internet connection is like. If you have at least 3 megabytes of upload, you can actually set this to 3000. You can set to like 2500 or 3000. That's what I would suggest. And that's because of the encoder we're using. We're not using the X264 because the X264 is very reliant on your CPU. It's using your CPU to process the video encoding for OBS. And so since this is a dual core budget PC, then we're not going to be wanting to use this. You can use it, but you're going to start dropping frames when you do, if you're wanting to stream at 60 FPS. So I'm going to be using the NVENC, which is using your video card to do all the processing, which is great. This is what you want, because then it's going to allow your processor to use the game, to render the game, instead of using the GPU, which, I mean, most games right now, I mean, especially like Overwatch, like you were seeing at the very beginning. That game's not very GPU, like it's very optimized, and you have a lot of optimizations in game that you can do to make it run very smoothly, even while you're streaming. So this is the main one we're going to be using. Okay, this is for the budget PC because X264 is just too CPU heavy. It's going to make you drop frames in the stream and a little bit in game too, from my experience. Audio, you can really just keep this the same. Really doesn't make a difference, honestly. You can set it up to 320 if you want, but 160 is fine. As for, make sure you click the Enable Advanced encoder settings so that it has these drop-down boxes. Now this is kind of like X264. If you go down here, you can see if I select X264 and put this drop-down box for the encoder preset, it has all these different options. If you're using X264, you're going to have to use super fast if you want to use 60 FPS. Because very fast I think is the default, but the CPU isn't strong enough to support that. So you can do super fast. It will drop the quality down a little bit, but you'll still have a pretty decent stream quality from what I've seen. And I'll actually show you footage from a stream that I've done in the past. I'll add it to this. And then yeah, so just make sure you have the NVENC, and then just keep it on default. Honestly, you won't really need to do too much on this. Like if you're working on AMD, you might have to switch between high performance, but you can honestly just keep it default, and then you should be fine. Audio, you really don't need to mess with, just depending on your microphone that you have. Obviously I have an AT2020, so its sample rate is 48 hertz, which is its standard, and so just make sure you select its normal functions. As for the video, this is where the settings are going to be changed a little bit. For the base canvas revolution, that's going to be your monitor's resolution. Oh my gosh, I can't talk right now. Just make sure that's set to whatever your monitor's resolution is. So mine's 1920 by 1080, nothing really fancy, just standard normal resolutions. As for the output scale, make sure this is 1280 by 720. Obviously this is down resolutioning, downscaling to 720p, which is great. That's what you want. That's going to give you the best stream quality for the PC specs that you have, on top of not being partnered. So I mean, if you're partnered, go for it. Why not? Go for higher. As for the downscale filtering, there is 3 options, and it's between like the one below this is like 16 sampling. You see at the very end of the option says 32 sampling. I don't even know what the words are. So just keep this at the 32. The Landskas, I don't even know how to pronounce that. But yeah, just keep it at 32 and you should be fine. For the common FPS value, you can keep it at 60, should be fine. You might drop a teeny bit of frames here and there. I think the last stream I did, I dropped 0.7 of my frames, and I streamed for about, how long was it? 2 hours, something like that, like 0.7 frames. You won't even really notice it. If you don't want to drop frames at all, you can actually lower the downscale filtering, or you can lower the FPS value to like 48. 48 still fine. It'll still look really smooth. Not as smooth as 60, obviously, but 48 still looks really good, and I've done a lot of streaming on that as well. And then hotkeys don't have to worry about unless you're just wanting to have buttons to press to start and stop the stream. This one, make sure your process priority is set to above normal. I believe it's normal on default, but make sure it's above normal, because otherwise you might actually run into not like delays, but you might like stuttering in your stream. And I've had that a lot when I was trying to figure out how I could stream with this PC. You'll have, like, in your game it'll be fine, but once you go back and actually look at what's playing back, what everybody else is seeing, it's choppy, it's laggy. You don't want that. So make sure it's above normal, so it's prioritizing OBS over pretty much over everything. As for the renderer, make sure you have it set to Direct 3D 11, which is standard. That's what you want. For your color format, I think just keep it at MV12. I don't even know what that is, but that's just its default. Just keep it at that. It's fine. The YUV color space, change that to 709 if it's not already defaulted to that, because mine was not. Mine was set to like 601 or something like that, and then the color range, set it to full. Mine was set to half. Honestly, when I changed this to have the full color range and this higher color space, my frames dropped less. I don't understand why, but it just did. So just keep to those. Whoops, I don't want to do that. So yeah, as for this, to automatically reconnect, you can keep that stock. That's fine. Stream delay is if you want a stream delay. This is basically just if you want a delay between what the viewers are seeing and what you're playing, you know, which is, I mean, if you're a bigger streamer, a lot of bigger streamers will have this so that they can, so people won't stream snipe as much, you know, makes sense. And as for settings, that's really about it. So just to put it all into perspective, 3000 bitrate ish if you have a 3 megabyte upload speed. NVENC is what we're using for the encoder because we're using the video card to do this. 1060 audio doesn't matter. Set this at default for the encoder preset, and then just make sure you're scaled down, scaled to 720p, and you'll be able to stream at 60 FPS just fine. If you are using an AMD type of GPU, which is fine. There's some pretty decent AMD GPUs. You might have to mess around with settings. I find just, you know, NVIDIA type GPUs to be a little bit more reliable from what I found. Just in my experience, that's my personal experience. But AMD still does make really good cards, so I don't think you'll have to really change it too much. Honestly, just you have to mess around with it if these settings aren't optimal for your AMD, because these are mainly like NVIDIA type settings. So yeah, if you play back your stream and it's not like loading as well as you thought it was going to, that's fine. Just go back and look at it and just adjust accordingly, kind of mess with it. So that brings us on to our next point, and I will swap over to Overwatch and let you know what my settings are in game to kind of give you an idea, and I'll also show you footage from, like more footage from just recording and streaming as well. So here we go. All right, wow, amazing, beautiful transition, wonderful, perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the game settings. So obviously we are at the home screen. I am just using OBS to record this, so wait, that's fine, we can go to practice range. I'll kind of show you how smooth it is for your in-game play when you're streaming. It'll be exactly the same, like your frames, all that kind of stuff. So let's go with like a high mobile hero. I'm gonna have to turn my sensitivity up just a little bit with this hero because mine's kind of low. For this, so let's go to like the 9 or something like that. A little bit higher, I think. See if I can control it. I'm used to having low FPS. I don't play heroes like Tracer, so yeah. So basically, this is your frames that's going to be like in game. You know, it's going to be really smooth. Everything's going to be fine. I don't know. I don't really even notice any choppiness. Like I don't see any, especially like in playbacks. Like if I drop frames a little bit, you'll kind of see it. But I mean, for the most part, like you'll just notice everything is pretty smooth. You know, just kind of doing its thing. Even with like high, crazy amounts of stuff going on in a game. I mean, if you have like a huge team fights, Graviton being used with Ferret's barrage going off, like, I mean, everything's just super silky smooth. Oh, whoops, you can tell I suck with Tracer. I have to like run up to the guy. But yeah, everything's really, really smooth. So we can actually go ahead and just leave this game, and then we will go into the settings now. So in my settings, I have mine optimized to have the best frames possible. I don't really care about looks. So if your graphics quality is a little bit different, if it's not as good as you want it to be, like not the quality, but like just the FPS in game, just change some of these options, because I have mine set to just have like the best performance, because everything else I don't really care about. So as for your resolution, obviously do it to your main display that you want. That's kind of a no-brainer. Field of view, I just have mine set to max. Aspect ratio, same as your monitor. VSync actually depends on your monitor. I usually have mine on with this because it's not a very high hertz monitor. It's like 60 hertz, something like that. Yeah, 60 hertz, and it's 5 ms. So for me, it actually helps my frames in game. I don't know why mine wasn't on. Usually it is. Reduce buffering, have that on. That's gonna just make sure you have that on. As for your FPS, you can do display based, which is what most people do. For my display, I actually found doing a custom one and setting the cap to 300 frames helped my frames the most. Again, just mess around with both of those, see if display based is going to help your FPS, or if the custom limit FPS and just raise the cap up, it gives you the best one. As for this pre-select setting, don't even worry about it. It can be set to anything. You could have it low and change the settings, because we're just going to manually do it. So as for your render scale, keep it at 100%. Because you want everything to be rendered, obviously. For texture quality, keep it on the highest setting, because it's really not going to affect your performance too much. As for texture filtering, keep it on 16 times, because it's really not going to mess with your settings too much. And again, like, this is going to depend on also what kind of GPU you're using. I'm using a GTX 1050 Ti, which I mean is a new type of card, and I could have this all on epic settings if I wanted to, but if I was streaming, I'm not sure. I might drop a little bit of frames, but I want like good frames in game. For the fog detail, you want it on low. I mean, this is again for like competitive type of Overwatch. So you can have it however you want, but this is for like more competitive. So I have my fog detail low, because I like to be able to see things. Dynamic reflections and shadow details off, because the lower the shadow detail, like I have it, you can have it on low, honestly, because the shadow detail sometimes comes in handy, especially if you can see them coming around the corners. So you can have that on or off, doesn't really matter. I don't like reflections, messes with my eyes, don't like it. Model detail low, doesn't really make a difference. Effects detail, don't really care about the flashy effects. Lighting quality, don't really care about the lighting quality for me. Anti-aliasing, again, I don't know why it's not on the highest, I'll just keep it there, whatever. Usually you can have this on the highest, because it really doesn't affect your performance that much either. Refraction quality, I just have mine on low, and screenshot quality doesn't really matter. I have my ambient occlusions off. Shit's annoying. I don't like it. And local reflections is off also. This is just for high FPS in-game type settings, where you still have good quality and good FPS, but you're not gonna have like, oh my gosh, I'm playing on a 1080, this is like amazing, oh my god. But yeah, like I'm not like that high rated. I'm like 2513. I actually dropped rating. I was like 2588 last night, but like I was getting like the worst games in the world. So yeah, that's basically a good overview on basically like the whole system and what you can do with it. I've actually been streaming a little bit. I can stream Diablo 3 just fine. I can stream H1Z1 just fine, which is a very CPU intensive game, but because we're using the NVENC encoder in OBS to do the rendering for the stream, that's why we're able to stream it, which is great. Awesome. I would actually recommend, you can stream on a quad core. This is just for like, you can stream on an i3. Don't let anybody tell you can't, okay? Because obviously they've just been like reading online about like, oh, you have to have an i7. Wow, I don't actually know from personal experience. Now tell them to shut the fuck up, because this is like, I mean, I'm showing you from experience and showing you like firsthand that this is, you don't need an i7 to stream, and I'll actually prove it to you right now. So I will put my display capture back on, exit my game, go over to control panel, and I will show you my system specs right here. Intel Core i3-6100, 3.7 gigahertz, 8 gigs of RAM. Like, you don't need crazy amounts of stuff. And then as for my video card, I hate opening this thing because it always takes so long. Let's do the control panel. Usually this opens pretty quick. And just so I can prove to you guys. Oh, hey, look, that's the videos from the last one. Hi. And let's see. Does it show me? Somewhere. I know it shows me somewhere. Oh. The lag. Okay, perfect. Here we go. GTX 1050 Ti. It's easy. Like, you don't need much. So hopefully this video, guys, this video helped you. If not, then thumbs it down. I don't really care. But if it did, thumbs it up. Hope it did. So if you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I will answer accordingly. Other than that, you guys have a wonderful day.